Hi there, I'm Eli Sipka, and this is the Apatros review. Now before I go on with this review, I would like to dedicate this to a dear friend of mine. He's currently in hospital suffering coronavirus. He's in intensive care. His name is Danny Hanna, and Danny, if you're watching, this one's for you. Now in this episode we take a look at this, Paranormal Activity 3. An 11-year-old film now. It was actually came out in 2011, and it was directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman. This is one of, basically, it's a Blumhouse film. Now the film is American, of course, theatrically released, and it premiered in Brazil in the Rio de Janeiro Film Festival on the 14th of October 2011. Then in Belgium, Egypt and France, and a few other countries on the 19th of October 2011. Then in Australia, New Zealand, Serbia and Russia on the 20th of October 2011. And then the next day on the 21st of October in Canada, the UK, Italy and US. It was directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, written by Christopher Landon, based on the film Paranormal Activity by Oren Peli, and produced by Jason Blum, Oren Peli and Steven Schneider. It's one of Blumhouse's early films as well. Now for the DVD, it's a dual-layer DVD. It's in PAL format. It's got 178 anamorphic widescreen frame, English 5.1 and 448 kilobyte range, and English DBS 5.1 also in the same range, and 7 subtitle tracks. It runs for about 80 minutes and 42 seconds in the PAL format. And the only supplement consists of the lost tapes, which is basically a prank montage and this commercial. I'll explain more about that later on. Now, the Paranormal Activity series started with an impressive word-of-mouth campaign with Oren Peli's ultra-cheap camcorder recording things that go bump in the night original film. It went on to make an even better sequel that expanded the story to a satisfactory degree, which led to this prequel that is to this day the highest performer the franchise had in the box office. Unfortunately, the novelty premise of the franchise is somewhat worn off to the point that you're not going to get anything new out of the premise without having to reinvent the story wheel. That being said, the two directors for Paranormal Activity 3 do manage to bring a few new ideas to the table. Apart from the brief prologue where we see the doomed family from the previous film looking for their house after the mysterious burglary, and a brief moment of new footage showing that whoever it was that caused the break-in stole a box filled with VHS videotapes that Kay had given to his sister's family for safekeeping, I suppose the rest of the film is basically the demon watching the tapes on his personal VCR, which contains a subtle little cheat which makes me suspect the demon secretly recorded these VHS tapes on the DVDs and is watching the discs on a PlayStation 3, giving the little play triangle in the lower left corner of the screen a brief moment. As somebody who spent years recording DVDs using a PlayStation 3 for that process, I know what I'm talking about. As the VHS tapes was shot in September 1988 by the sister's mother and her boyfriend, who works as a wedding photographer. When, after an aborted attempt to film a sex tape inadvertently reveals the presence of a ghost in the house, the boyfriend decides to rig up 3 VHS camcorders in the room. In their room, the little girl's bedroom, and the living room downstairs. That last one connected to the base of a fan, so it can swing from the living room to the kitchen nearby, in an effort to learn more about this ghost. At the same time, Katie is starting to talk to what the couple believes is an imaginary friend called Toby, but it soon becomes apparent that Toby is actually the demon of the girl's grandmother, who is part of a coven of witches that secretly made a deal with for wealth with the promise of a male child. Toby soon starts causing some serious trouble for the family, setting in motion a plan to claim Katie for his personal use, as the grandmother plans to marry her to the demon bastard. This is only apparent if you pay attention to the details of the film, particularly the pretended wedding day set up for Katie and Toby a few hours before the climax. Now, this film does feel a bit like the producers went 23 years into the past with the use of a Hollywood time machine and filmed it there. Were not for a few anachronisms, like a few toys that went around at the time. There's a Barbie doll that was actually from the 2000s, and a whale toy from the 90s, and also the mention of the Virgin Mary Toast manifestation, which was from the 1990s, and the little girls eating blue M&Ms during the backyard campout. I was in primary school in the 4th grade when blue M&Ms first came out, all the way back in 1995. And while everybody is ripping into the film for not being authentically shot on VHS in 133, I would have to play shadow advocate here, since if you shoot a film on VHS using the camcorders of the day, there is no way the film can be screened in 2011 era cinemas due to the infamous VHS blurring, so that cheat was absolutely necessary. Although they could have released a version of the film using VHS filters for the DVD market if they deemed it necessary. Anyway, the film does do a modest job of the spooking around. Highlights being the chic ghost behind the babysitter, the kitchen contents being tossed down, and the subtle first appearance of Toby with the dust falling on right after the earthquake aborts the sex tape. Now, the reason why I don't consider Paranormal Activity 3 as anything more than passable is because of the fact the novelty premise is worn off a fair bit, and the explanation of the demon's mission is still only consisting of assumptions. My synopsis involves a little bit of reading between the lines here, and using basic information from the first two films. Now, with the exception of the witches in the climax, there's no real evidence of the existence of the coven, although the photo that appears halfway through does provide evidence pertaining to the occult marking that's seen in the girl's cubbyhole and around their drawing board. I do note that the filmmakers had to cheat their way out of making this actual VHS footage. The camera was actually a tiny high-def camera hidden into the shell of an old VHS camcorder, but ultimately Paranormal Activity 3 doesn't score too high, just being a passable way of explaining away the Toby demon's activity in the girl's childhood. At least now we have a name for the demon. Some questions of the previous films are answered, but many new questions are asked at the same time. The use of the 1988 era Paramount logo at the end is a nice touch. Now for gore nudity. There's no gore, aside from a long scratch in the boyfriend's friend's abdomen. That guy is also the only person that survives the demonic attack in the entire franchise. And no nudity, although things do come fairly close in the start of the film. Now for the DVD. This is released on Blu-ray and DVD in Australia by Paramount. This review for the DVD, and we issued this on what they consider their version of a skeleton disc. The film has a nice and clear print that obviously doesn't look like it was recorded on the VHS tape, because I already explained that. And the solitary English 5.1 is nice, clear, and spooky. There is a second soundtrack consisting of those bloody, stupid, devious audio subtitles designed for the blind, as the blind people watch these things, and 7 subtitles are decent enough. The only supplement on the DVD are a couple of short vignettes taken from the lost tapes, a montage of pranks a couple play on each other, and the boyfriend's TV commercial, which looks authentic enough. So that's it for Paranormal Activity 3. It gets a C+, 5 out of 10. It's passable. Okay, now I do not do requests, but if you have any questions about DVDs or films, just hit me up in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys are staying safe, take it easy, and Danny, if you're watching, I hope you recover. Okay, take it easy guys, and see ya.